And we know he's an emotional guy. Look at when he wouldn't get substitute in the League Cup final. But something in his heart, he said, right, I'm going to make this work. And I'm going to utter a sentence here that I don't think I've uttered many times in my 20 years on talkSPORT. Andy Jacobs was right. He's been banging on the desk saying we've got to get Kepa back in the team for Chelsea to stabilise themselves. Andy Jacobs, it turns out, was right. What's your third magic moment?
Well, easy one for me. Mo Salah back on form, and the goal was just tremendous. It wasn't, although it was a mistake and more bad defending than a mistake. It was a wonderful pivot on the turn and a touch to get himself in. And I mean, I don't think for 1 second he probably thought about the one he'd missed just earlier in the second. He just looked full of confidence. He looked sharp. He looked confident. He looked like a man who had a point to prove yesterday. And I think he thrived in a more central role. And I think City helped in that respect in the way they set up, but maybe we'll talk about that a bit later.
We will.
The role he played gave him the freedom to just use all his energies attacking. He didn't have to track back in any wide areas. I thought his performance was the best that I've seen him this season, but the goal was just brilliant from Salah, and I wouldn't be surprised, and I said this 2 weeks ago, I wouldn't be surprised that he goes on a run. So that's 4 in 2, and then we'll see what he does in the next couple of games, because the next couple of games for Liverpool, you look at them, West Ham at home and Forest away, I think it is, I'm right in saying. I think he could score a couple in both of those. I mean, he's if they played that system, neither West Ham or Forest are pulling up trees at the moment, although West Ham got a draw at the weekend.
Yeah, João Cancelo's, I don't know what he was trying to do particularly, but once the ball was at... And actually, Danny, when you say you don't think that the miss went through his mind, it's more than that with Salah, isn't it? He's such a great striker that he probably just as likely to subconsciously think, well, I've missed one, I don't miss two.
True.
And away you go. And it was absolutely... And he drilled it. It was really, really a good goal.
And actually, Dan, the first chance... It wasn't really a miss.
No.
What a save. It was a brilliant
Absolutely
save.
Brilliant save.
It wasn't a corner, though, was it? It wasn't giving us a corner.
No.
Oh, well, Sean, that was just the start of it for the referees and the VAR officials this weekend. And poor Danny, I saw on Match of the Day last evening having to discuss all this, have to go through some of them again, I'm afraid. I don't want to be doing it either, but really they affected so many games, sometimes positively, sometimes negatively, at the weekend, that we will have to talk about it. That's Danny's 3 magic moments. Sean, what were your reporters demanding that you put on the back pages over the weekend?
It wasn't so much what was on the back pages, Dan, but because that was very much dominated by the Liverpool City fallout of everything that was going on, a lot of the stuff that was going on off the pitch. But Joe Gomez's performance on it was just fantastic, and it reminded us of what he used to be like. Now, I accept he's been injured, but he did have that bust up with Sterling some time ago as well, which I think has put a little bit of a mark against his England career. And I think we'd forgotten about him, really, as a defender.
Well, because they got so much, we had so much.
We had so many
right back.
Yes,
right back,
or right side of a three, or whatever.
In the same way of Kyle Walker, he can definitely play right centre back, can't he? In a 3, and he can play right back. So
absolutely,
he's another one who, and this is always the case. When Gareth was kind of not giving Ivan Toney a go in those 2 recent internationals, it did occur to me, but it was still 8 weeks out from the World Cup, then 9 weeks out from the World Cup. Anything could still happen. Somebody could get injured. 2 people could get injured.
Absolutely.
And a player could just leapfrog in form.
I mean, it may be
it
may be a little bit late for him to make a run for the World Cup, but there's always somebody who gets in very late who you thought...
Although I know they like him. I know they like him, and the fact is, it's understandable he's not been in the squad. I mean, his first game's back, he got thrown back in, coming back from injury, which is never easy. You need games. His first game at centre-back this season was against arguably one of the best teams in Europe at the moment, away in Napoli, where he struggled. He's been switched from right-back to centre-half, can't get any rhythm going. But I think that one of the main things about his performance yesterday, apart from his good distribution, he looked really fit.
Yeah.
And that's what 4 or 5 games does for you. Any player will tell you need 4 or 5.
Yeah, he's probably got to put in another couple of performances. Yeah. Mind you, it's not against the sternest opposition, is it? The next few games, no. So will that be enough to convince Gareth Southgate, who didn't actually go to that game yesterday? He'd been at Leicester the day before, but he wasn't.
Well, maybe it'll depend on Walker.
It maybe will
depend on Walker.
Stone's still out injured as well at the moment, of course. Maguire,
not playing.
Maguire's not playing. He's been injured. There's a few conundrums there in defence, I've got to say. One other thing, Dan, for me,
go on.
A bit left field this one, but Jose Sarr in goal for Wolves has been playing with a fractured wrist for 8 games. Saved a penalty yesterday.
It didn't look very fractured when he stopped that penalty.
I mean,
did it?
that's fantastic effort. He admits he's in pain. He's being sort of injections and all of that, and I think sometimes keepers get much maligned. I think he deserves a bit of credit for that, because it was very important.
You're hearing this, Danny? Out for weeks with calf injuries and all the rest of it.
A goalkeeper with a fractured wrist.
I was one of the old school. I would play with anything because I was too scared about losing my place. I love a player who has durability, and when you play over a period of time, you know which players are going to be there and which ones aren't. You know, when someone says, sometimes you get a player comes in on Thursday morning, goes to the doctor and says, got a bit of a cold. And the lads will go, he's not playing Saturday. And some of them you'll go, doesn't make it, he'll still be he wouldn't even tell the doctor. Do you know what I mean? He might be, he's sniffling and his voice is changed and his nose is blocked, but he's still on the training pitch in -1. They're the different types.
Just, if you knew a goalkeeper...
when you ring up work...
Sorry, go on, Dan.
Oh, sorry. You know, when you ring up work, if you have a normal job, Danny, if you ring up work and you want to get a day off and you have to put on this really croaky voice to make out you're really ill, what's the equivalent with footballers? Rubbing the back of your calf about 2 minutes from the end of training the day before, yeah?
Well,
or is it a back injury?
You do get the odd person phone in, but normally they tell you've got to come in anyway, or the doctor will drive to your house. That's what ended up.
God.
Yeah, doctor. So if you called in and tried to say, I'm really struggling, I can't get in, normally most clubs I was at, the doctor will say, I'll be with you this afternoon.
You also have to, when the substitutes board goes up as well, you always have to limp off, don't you, even if you're not injured? You did that. No. Can I just ask, just quickly, Dan? Dan, what would you do if you know a goalkeeper's got a fractured wrist and you're in the opposition? Do you go in a bit hard?
No,
do you attempt
to be honest, if you know he's playing, you know it can't be that bad.